Welcome to a Delco Nerd Network hot take. Guys, if you haven't seen a hot take before, well, it's where a few friends get in a basement, give our thoughts, give our opinions on a TV show, a movie, or a game. Today, it's going to be a game, and that game is Dying Light 2, Stay Human. Here to discuss, as always, the triple threat, Chris Trio.
Gooch, how are you?
I am well.
I love
You're
to hear
looking very alive.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting over some stuff. I'm feeling better. I might sound a little gruff today,
Not dead like
but
those
not dead.
goddamn zombies. or
Not
whatever
dead
they
like
call
those
them.
goddamn zombies.
Call them in the Dying Light universe.
They actually, I'm trying to think. I guess they do actually call them zombies. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's not like a scrambler or a jambler or a
Shambler, Walker,
or a.
I thought always.
biter.
I thought Walking Dead. Walking Dead. I thought Walking Dead always did a good job with like making people call zombies different names.
I think it's funny. I think it's kind of trite to do now in a way, but
To
they
do
were
that.
I
Yeah.
think they were actually the first to do it, so they have the right to do that. But
So-
I hate, like, what are they in? What's the biker one?
Days Gone.
Days Gone.
Freakers.
That's what I thought. See, just call them
Didn't even
fucking
play
zombies.
that. So Trio, you have had the chance a few months, more than a few weeks, to play
Absolutely.
another open world game because we have a lot of them in the
Yes.
past 3 months. Dying Light 2 was one of the first games to come out at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
What do you think? I've heard some mixed bag opinions. I didn't play this one. Trio just did, so this
Yeah.
would be really his show. But yeah, what did you think? Initial impressions? You're like one of the biggest Dying Light fans I know.
Yeah, so I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the first Dying Light. I think it still holds up very well, and I think that it is a very worthwhile play if you've never played that, first off. But yeah, no, I really like Dying Light 1. I think Dying Light 2 is a very natural progression of where this game goes, and I think it's a lot of fun. I think there's definitely a few hiccups that I will talk about. Ran into some glitches, especially those first couple weeks. I kind of put it down for a little bit, not because I didn't like it, but because Elden Ring came out, and that kind of just took over my life for a bit. But then I got back into it, and it seemed even more stable than where it was at, which was good. But yeah, man, overall, I think there's a lot of good here, vastly outweighs the bad, and I think it's worth playing. If zombie games can become a bit, or at least back in the day, I feel like they were very overdone
and
repetitive, and
Yeah.
you know, we were getting them a lot.
We got
but,
Dead Rising, Walking
Dead Rising,
Dead games,
so many
Days
zombies.
Gone, Dying Light.
But
you know.
yeah, I think Dying Light does it in a new and fresh way that I thoroughly enjoy.
So do you think Dying Light 1 is like required to play 2, or can you really?
No, not at all. They
So
very
no
much
story connection.
No, there's very sparse connections that are just basically why the world is the way it is.
Sure.
So basically, to set it up, you're dealing with the THV virus, which they basically dubbed the Haran virus. Haran is where the first game takes place. It's a fictional city. The GRE continued to experiment on the virus, which eventually, after it was cured. So the Haran virus was cured. This was in 2014 when the first game came out is when it was set. And then this is set in 2036.
Oh,
but
wow.
So this is 15 years after the fall, which happens this year or last year, 2021. So yeah, basically the setup for that was after the Haran virus was cured, the GRE, who is the global relief effort, which were kind of like the big bad government boogeyman of the last game. That
Sure, like the
you were a GRE agent
like
sent
Fedra
in. Exactly.
in Last of Us. Yeah.
Even like a Umbrella Corps in a certain way.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so they continued to experiment on the virus, and then it eventually led to a leak out in 2021, which led to the fall, which they describe as bringing humanity back to the Dark Ages. It's set in this town called Villador, which
Fictitious,
was
obviously.
another fictitious town.
Interesting they decided to. I mean,
I think it kind of makes it easier so they can
where is it actually based,
or
or like what's it supposed to be?
I don't know. My guess is a like South American area, but everyone's speaking English, and I don't know if that's because obviously it's in English for the game, but I don't know exactly where it's set. But you're playing as Aiden, who is a pilgrim, which I kind of like this lore a lot. They are the only people who travel between any human settlements at this point, and you're considered insane if you do that. Like a lot of people don't trust the pilgrims for the most part. When you show up in Villador for the first time, they try to hang you because you don't have a biomarker and you get saved by this guy.
Biomarker?
So at this point in the THV virus, everyone has it. It's kind of like The Walking Dead. The only thing
Everyone's infected.
Everyone's infected, or you can become infected. I don't know if it's like airborne, but it seems to be. A lot of people are. It seems to be that way, and people in Villador have these things called biomarkers, which monitor how close you are to fully turning and fully becoming infected.
So you just kind of naturally become infected. Like
it seems like it's airborne. Like
eventually, like you don't
if
need
you
to
die,
be bit.
yes. So that's the part I'm a little bit shaky on. I didn't quite get if everyone was just innately infected, because at the beginning of the game, you get bit as Aiden. And then you get into it. And then that's why you have to get the biomarker, and you need a biomarker to get anywhere in the city. There's a few factions that are taking control of the city. One is the Peacemakers, who are very much a kind of old world, more kind of fascist leaning government style thing. Okay. But I wouldn't, fascist is a hard word.
Sounds like Metro.
A little bit, yeah, for sure. They are the
Metro
kind of continuation of it. And then there are the survivors, who are the more kind of like free love. The old world fell because of these governmental tactics, so we're not doing that again. Why would we do that?
Pretty stereotypical factions.
I would say so, yeah. But I got to give it to them. They give them shades of color for sure within the actual people within it. Okay. There's a lot of choice in this game. You choose whether, so there are towers within it, like water towers and electric stations and stuff like that you can power up and decide who you give that station to, which faction, and whichever one you choose gives you specific things in the city. So I went with mostly survivor stuff, and it's funny, they give you more. So there's, I don't know, maybe 20 different upgrades depending on which way you go. So 10 on the Peacemakers side, 10 on the survivor side, and the more things you give to the Peacemakers or the survivors, different things pop up around the city. So for instance, the survivors, if you give them a water tower or you give them whatever, after a while they start to put up zip lines around the city to make it easier for you to get around. Then also they'll set up, with the Peacemakers, they'll set up maybe car bombs and traps and stuff like that help you get away from infected.
So there's a faction progression and then a character progression.
Yes.
What's the character progression look like? The
character progression is pretty simple. You have
trees.
Yeah, there's 2 trees. There's your parkour tree and your basically your fighting tree. And one thing I will say, the parkour in this is where the game shines so much. They really kind of dove into the mechanics.
A lot of improvements.
There's a lot of layers to it. When you get on a good groove free running through the city, it's a lot of fun. And I think the races specifically kind of shine a light on that. And then Gino likes to shake his collar when we're getting ready to talk about that even more. Are you gonna lick some more, Gino? All right.
No, he's gonna sit.
I like it. But yeah, no, the races are a lot of fun. There's also, I will say, where this game shines the least for me is the combat. A little bit less so than the first game, even, which kind of is sad. The weapons are a lot more kind of throwaway. You have some crafting systems which are interesting. I actually like the crafting system, especially so there's a lockpicking minigame that's the Skyrim lockpicking minigame. Okay. There's different things like Molotovs that you can upgrade, bombs, and you collect things around the city that you go back to the craftsman, you can upgrade these certain things. And I got to say, they do make you search around, but the scavenging becomes a bit samey because you're picking up the same things. But where you're going to scavenge has some variety, which I do like.
So you have a weight system?
No, there is no weight system. You have a max amount of like weapons you can carry at once.
But
it's not like there's slots.
Capacity.
Yeah, I will say the armor system is very post-apocalyptic armor is very
hit or miss.
Hit or miss. Even in like Fallout sometimes. Yeah. It can be cool, but then other times it's like, all right, you're putting together like, it's like hockey pads and
I ultimately end up playing like Fashion Wars with those games where I want to look cool. I don't really care like what my armor does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's a trouble with a lot of RPGs too, even. And I guess this is kind of an RPG to a degree because you are making these choices.
You got. I mean, a lot of games have RPG elements.
You're right.
Whether they're RPGs or not. Horizon is the same thing. It has trees.
Yeah.
And kind of talking to that, going back to like the character progression, I feel like trees are, every time I see them, I instantly kind of like sigh and go, All right, because
Sure.
I feel like trees are so trite now, and like
I would agree with that.
I'm just kind of like over them. Like I would like a different way to progress my character other than just like a leveling tree. Like I just
So-
ultimately get bored with them. Like
And
they
I will
don't
give it
interest
to
me
them
all that much.
Yeah.
Especially when there's like 7.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what the fuck?
And that's the thing. I do think this limits you. You just have those 2 trees.
That
and I
sounds
think it's
more
very
approachable.
simplified. And then
Yeah.
you are also collecting these things throughout the game, which are called, God, what are they called again? Inhibitors, I believe, which allow you to level up either your stamina or your health after you get 3 of them. So very kind of Breath of the Wild style in that way.
Sure.
And I definitely focused on my stamina more because I feel like it's a lot more helpful, especially when you're dealing with stuff like the windmills. So the windmills are these power stations which become safe zones that you have to, they're kind of puzzles, I guess, almost Assassin's Creed-ish in the way of you have to figure out your way up it, and you need a certain amount of stamina because everything you do costs stamina when you are free running. So you need to get to a certain level to be able to hold yourself up long enough to get to that top ledge or something like that.
That's interesting.
And I think it works very well. And you start out in Old Villador, which is much flatter and much... I'm trying to think of something to relate it to. Not nearly as tall buildings, maybe more like a Florence-ish.
It doesn't have a lot of verticality.
Not nearly as much as when you get to Full Villador, which is like insane skyscrapers where they introduce you to the glider, which at first I was like, I don't know if I like this. But as I started to use it, and it starts to just become as smooth as butter where you're traversing this large-scale city, they have basically vents that allow you to glide up really quick and stuff like that can keep you going. I think the glider was one of my favorite additions to this.
So
episode
is
of it.
Villador kind of like your standard open world area, or is the map like your stereotypical bring it up and there's like points of unknown interest
Yeah,
you gotta
definitely.
find, and
Yeah.
like is it stereotypical, or like what makes Dying Light 2's open world kind of stand out from the
No,
rest?
I think the way you explore it is what makes it really stand out. Genuinely. I think it's definitely a very cookie cutter in the way of how, you got your question marks, you have the question mark, you figure out what it is.
Right.
But one thing I mentioned to you, which I love in every single game that does it now, is it does not have a mini map. It has a compass. And I found this especially while playing Rockstar games, old Rockstar games, and even Red Dead. I'm playing the mini map sometimes more than the actual game. And I think, they work very well in a game like a Halo where you need that. That's a multiplayer game. But in an open world game, a compass that allows you to explore, I mean, we'll talk about it more when we get to Elden Ring. Elden Ring doesn't even have a compass. That's just like fucking do whatever you want to do. But there is an option in this game. I think you can turn off your HUD. And I think it does lend itself to allow you to explore very naturally like that, if that's the way you want to play it, which is cool. But yeah, it's very much your standard in that way.
I feel like I'm going to bring this up, especially as we get to review Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West. I feel like open world games really need to evolve in a way that Elden Ring kind of did, where their worlds are not just these telegraphed where to goes and what to explore, rather than just like, all right, like there's nothing on the map and you just find it.
And
There's a lot less things, and
I
some
agree.
of those points of interest that normally would be located are just kind of there and not like designated by anything. Like I think like you look at Horizon and you look at Elden Ring, and I'm assuming like let's put Dying Light 2 in this as well. Like your map is covered in shit,
Just littered in shit.
You're right. Your UI is full of stuff to kind of help you traverse the open world and hints and stuff. And I'm just at a point where like I appreciate like what Elden Ring is doing. It's like just explore the world. Like you'll pick up items and you kind of like figure out the lore from there, and like this sense of exploration and grandioseness, if that's even a word, is present in there. Whereas some of the other open world games, it's like, all right, well, this whole map kind of pinpoint where I'm gonna go, so I'm just gonna go from point to point to
there
point
is
to point
a
to point
ton
to
of
point.
for lack of a better term, hand holding going on in
Yes,
that.
yeah.
And I will appreciate a game that at least gives me the option to not have that. And I need to check Dying Light. I'm fairly confident you can turn off basically all the HUD, but
I'm sure you can. Most games do have that feature.
And even I will say, people are giving Assassin's Creed and stuff kind of shit for that too. they allow you to play on adventure mode that does none of that. That tells you about nothing, and you just you just walk away. And I will, I will say, Elden Ring might design it better for that way.
Yeah,
because it's designed innately to do that.
But it's not like an Elden Ring. You feel like you're missing stuff. Like an Assassin's Creed, you ultimately will probably miss a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah, but I guess I don't. Yeah, you're right, and I think that's because, like you're saying, you can't know that you've missed something.
Right.
Whereas I do think you could get that out of, especially like, I don't know, Origins. I played that on the adventure mode, and that was very similar to this. But Elden Ring, we're not going to get into a whole Elden Ring talk here. But getting back to Dying Light, I think its open world is definitely leaning more towards the Horizon kind of cookie cutter-ish style of how of how everything is laid out. But like I said, exploring that map is so much fun that it makes it okay, and I don't think it's all overwhelming. You can kind of very naturally progress to everything, but I did find myself opening the map and being like, oh, where can I go next? All right, I'll put a marker on this. I wish it did a better job of kind of showing things off in the distance sometimes, but overall, I think it's an encapsulating open world. For sure.
How was like the side content? I know we'll hit the main story and we'll talk about that, but like, was the side content like kind of like building an extra layer on the world, or was it just kind of like there was actually one quest that I thought that really stuck with me, that I thought was really good overall, which I'll talk about in a sec. But overall, I do think there's a few fetch quest stuff. It's stuff to give you a reason to explore the open world, and it's a little bland.
It's a bland sometimes. I think there are a few standouts, but I do think for the most part, I don't really remember most of them. I will say that. But the one quest I thought was really good was the power gets turned back on for a story point in the city. And like, you meet this guy and he's like, I gotta find you gotta help me save my wife. You gotta help me save my wife. I need you to turn on this power. And they kind of set it up to be like, oh, he's like trying to reanimate her corpse. Like, this is not like they seem to be like, she died. He's like, I have to save her. I'm like, oh God, okay, what is this gonna be? Because they did kind of something similar, I think, in the first game. But then you turn on the power and you get back to him. And he's like, listen, my wife. And then he plays like the last message from her, like on their recording machine. And it was like, oh, fuck. That was so sad. And I was not expecting it at all. And it like really got to me.
Okay.
But no, I think overall they are good. Are they the most memorable? No. But there are definitely some ones that stand out.
I heard there's a lot of missable collectibles. I heard like the beginning is a prologue and like you can miss stuff.
I was gonna say the intro is a bit long for sure.
Yeah.
But I did not. I'm not a collector on that end, so I didn't know that.
In regards to like the achievement sphere that I hang out.
I'm glad you do that research. That's what you.
I heard. Yeah, I heard like there are like that prologue. There are missables.
Interesting.
And that's always like a. Like, what the fuck thing. It's like you can't go back to that area.
Yeah, because it's like outside of Villador. You're making your way into Villador from like the forested kind of area.
Yeah,
and you can't go back there, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't care about that normally, but like, hey, if you're
putting collectibles like that,
especially with an open world game, if I can't 100% it in one playthrough, and I have to replay because there's missables in a prologue, and it's
not like you can.
It's those moments that I go,
what the fuck, guys?
That's bad design.
Yeah,
for like a completion standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is funny because that's not something, again, me would think of, but that's totally fair. That makes sense. Overall, the collectibles, there are some interesting. Speaking of collectibles, I'm glad you brought these up. There are tapes and stuff you can find throughout the world, files, newspaper clippings, and all this stuff that really kind of fill in that time of what happened in those 15 years in the dark, and like how the Dark Ages set in. And I will say that's really cool. And they set it up to.
It's an interesting gap.
It is, and I appreciate.
It's not like the direct.
No.
Like, oh, we're gonna do a second Dying Light. Maybe it takes place a year or two after, and maybe it's not connected or tangentially connected. Now it's like, no, we're gonna do a 15-year jump, and like, seems like totally kind of divorce ourselves from the first one. Same world, obviously, but like just explore a different avenue.
I like that they used the building blocks of the first game to be, and then they did set up this whole new story. Yeah, it is. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna jump into the main narrative.
Yeah. Let's talk about the main. I had one other thing I was about to say.
I've heard a lot about Rosario Dawson in this game.
I'm curious, good or bad?
Like in the middle.
Okay, interesting.
I heard she kind of carries.
I was gonna say I think her performance is great. Okay. I think she's awesome.
Yeah,
I like her a lot. Her character's named Luan. She doesn't come in until you get to main Villador, which again,
is she your sister or something?
No. So the story of this is that Aiden was being experimented on with his sister Mia back right when the fall broke out.
Mia, come on, we already got a Mia.
I know. I did think the Mia was a funny choice of like
and Aiden. We Aiden Pierce from Watch Dogs. Like
that's true.
We gotta any other name.
True.
Any other name.
But you guys were separated when you were very young. You were having experiments performed on you by this kind of mad scientist type guy named Waltz, who you are kind of hunting down throughout this game to find out what happened to Mia, and it's very kind of obfuscated, and you don't quite know what happened, and then they kind of do this twist at the end that I didn't quite connect.
Is it like, so the experiments, is it like rooted in like reality, or is it like kind of...
Oh yeah, it seems like
like almost like Resident Evil kind of could seem real.
So
like anything they do in Resident Evil, like realistically, like some of the stuff is pretty out there.
No, absolutely,
like
it's not like
thinking,
any.
What's his name? Heisenberg.
Yeah,
like that shit is a little out there, but like then there's some other stuff. It's like okay, like
no, it doesn't
seem like not believable. Well, not believable, but more grounded.
They seem to be. I can't really say what they are doing without spoiling it.
Do you want to keep spoiler free?
I guess for the
Well, I mean, we've gone pretty spoiler free.
Again,
it's up to you. You know.
I don't think it's a major thing.
Court.
I will do a quick spoiler here. Mute your sound for 10 seconds. I'll hold my hand up. All right, starting now. So they're experimenting to find a vaccine for the cure, basically at that point on these kids because they have shown immunity from the virus, and they're a part of it. We are out of that spoiler now, but yeah. So. Experiments in that vein. But again, Aiden at this point and his sister are very young. They seem to be, 8 to 10. I don't know. And we get a few flashbacks of this throughout that very much present Waltz as like this kind of crazy, terrible person.
But you find out it's not like that at all?
Sort of. Okay. I mean, he kind of is still.
Okay.
But
is it more like positive than you realized?
There's a reason.
Okay.
And there is a twist that they kind of show you that I didn't quite, I don't know if I quite totally understood, but we'll talk about it. But yeah, Waltz. Damn it! What was I about to say?
Experiments.
Oh yeah, the experiments. The other thing that these experiments did to Aiden was give him kind of these superhuman abilities to where he can jump a little bit further.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. No, it definitely.
Gameplay reasoning.
And that's what adds these things to. It makes you run very.
So do people like comment on that or no?
Well, he tells so you meet Luan, who is also minor spoiler, who is also one of Walt's experimentees, who also has these kind of abilities. Again, he's a pilgrim, so he kind of just shows up here. You're not really doing a lot of quests with people, so when you're out in the world, I don't know, maybe if someone saw you jump really far, they'd be like, what's going on there? But I do think it's a good narrative reason as to why you can do some of these more superhuman type things, but they're not over the top. Like you can jump a little bit further, you can run faster, but they aren't. It's like kind of Captain America-ish, not even that level of like physical extra bit. You know what I mean?
Not invincible, but
enhanced. Enhanced, absolutely.
It's always a good word.
Enhanced. So yeah, you're looking for your sister Mia. It takes you throughout all of Old Villador, and then into Villador, you're trying to find anyone who can give you information, trying to lead you to Waltz. He kind of pops up throughout the story. And you find out that the GRE were basically using Villador as a
test bed.
Especially after the breakout, because Villador is where it broke out. And then they set up walls around Villador, like these insane, gigantic walls to keep all the infected in. But that basically ended up making it the only safe haven on Earth, because once everything spread, the walls were keeping everything out. And it ended up being the only safe place, basically, that they seem to know of for humanity at this point. There seems to be very small settlements kind of throughout the world, but yeah, this seems to be the big one. Overall, though, I think the story was pretty great. It kind of meanders a bit in the middle, and the payoff is
open world games
good.
Always do.
Yeah,
there's a strong setup, and then they kind of let you go to do everything,
and then
you
come
fall
back.
off a little bit, and then you kind of come back.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Horizon's kind of like taking that where it's like, oh yeah, like the opening is great, but then like once they let you go, it's like, all right, well you got to explore the world and kind of get to these points to progress the main story, and you kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit.
Absolutely,
as you're just naturally
for sure
playing.
But yeah, I think without spoiling anything, I think it's a very serviceable story. I think it's on par with the last one, at least for me. Waltz is an interesting villain. I think he becomes a little bit less interesting, but then becomes a tiny bit more interesting again, if that makes any sense.
Some ebbs and flows.
Yeah, some ebbs and flows for sure. but I'm curious how much the choices and stuff matter.
I heard about this.
So I don't.
I
I really don't know.
I heard they don't. Like from what I remember from the coverage, like when the game first came out, and what I was reading about it is like the choices end up being like they just kind of tell you what happens, and they don't really show you what happens.
So there are a few key points. So at the end, there's a big choice, but throughout the middle, there were choices that, at least in the moment, felt weighty to me for sure, and felt like, okay, this is going to change my direction. But then there was one specific one that didn't quite make sense to me. So there was this group of people called the Night Runners in Villador, which were basically
classic.
Yeah, they were the last bastion that gave people hope. They were the good people trying to help people.
The Night Runners.
The Night Runners, and they were led by this guy named Frank.
Frank, the Night Runner.
Frank, leader of the Night Runners. And they were sent. He took them on this mission to the tallest tower in Villador to set up the radio tower that's on top to get it working again.
Cool.
And it was a massacre. Most of them died because they all got
killed
scared.
by infected.
Yeah, and Frank made it out, and he became like an alcoholic. And Luan's friends with him. You meet Luan when you come into Villador, and there's a point in which you're working with the peacemakers, and they send you up to do that same thing, and you can choose either to give it to Frank or the peacemakers, and I chose to give it to Frank. And then Matt, the guy Jack Matt, leader of the Peacemakers, on the thing. He's
Jack
like,
Matt?
Jack Matt. 2 first names. I was
Jack
so confused.
Matt?
Jack Matt. I'm very confident that's his name.
Jack Matt.
Sorry.
That's okay.
And you can choose to either hook it up to them or to Frank. And I chose Frank. And then the way Jack Matt on the phone, he sounds
Jack
like
Matt, classic.
he's like, you're gonna fucking regret this, Aiden. I'm like, oh, I can't go back to the Peacemaker things. I can't go back to like Peacemaker.
So it
things.
locks you out
that
of
was
the
my
faction.
No, that was my assumption. Because the way he was talking, I was like, oh, but then I showed up to like the Peacemaker place, and they were like, hey, Aiden, what's up? All right, that's fine, I guess. I don't know. So there are things like
very
that.
opposite of All 4, where I didn't like how you made certain decisions and you totally got locked out of the railroad, for example. Like if you went down the Brotherhood path,
After a certain point, you
had to destroy them, and I was like, why? Unlike in Fallout New Vegas, where with the Brotherhood of Steel, and like you're sent to destroy them, but
and
you can
be like,
ultimately
no.
talk your way out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when a game, so there's only 2 factions, or there's smaller ones?
There is the third one, which is the Renegades, which are kind of these just crazy fucking anarchy
The Renegades
guys.
you had it made?
Yeah, correct. I was trying to get the other.
the
I was
Styx
trying to
song?
get the. I was trying to get the next line in my head, and I can't get
it made. Retreat
for the bounty. There it is. But yeah, so the Renegades, they're kind of Waltz seems to have taken control of a lot of them. They seem to be following
So
him.
they're like neutral?
Yeah, they just seem to be crazy fucks. Like
Okay.
the guys
crazy.
they're just insane guys who just are there to live, basically, and
Okay.
they'll take and pillage. They don't care.
These factions don't sound overly interesting.
They
aren't.
I genuinely, I will say, at the end of the day, what kept me in this game the most is the gameplay. And I do think that's true.
I did want to wrap it back around to that. How are the infection type? Like, what's the enemy variety like?
So there was one. So
We're dealing with zombies.
So
how far can you go with zombies?
the one thing. So you got your volatiles who are like the full.
standard?
They're like the. I'm trying to think of how to describe them. They are
highest level of infected?
highest level of they are the peak predator infected. They have like those
They've
crazy
gone
mandibles
they've gone
and
through
like
the whole evolution.
they only can come out at nighttime. They're fucked. But you don't see them that much in this game for some reason.
They're in the first one.
In the first one, you see them a lot more on they're on the streets at night, and you have to avoid them. But in this one, there are these things called screamers, which basically you have to avoid it, and they scream, and then they attract a chase at night, and then they give you. But it starts out at level 1, and then I'm assuming as you get up and higher in the chases in the level, the volatiles come out, but I wasn't finding them that much. Except you could go to these dark hollows and these places that you had to explore and clear out infected, and they would be there if you go in the daytime. But at nighttime, I just wouldn't see them as much on the street, which kind of frustrated. I didn't really understand that. But you have your like kind of big hulking infected. Then you have bolters who just run. But the idea is they have things on them that you need for crafting abilities. So you have to chase them.
So it sounds
there
like
are open world things that you run into. Like I'm trying to think of what they're called. like in Red Dead, how you'd run into like a white dot, like an open world event almost.
A dynamic event.
Yeah.
A radiant event, as they call them in Skyrim.
Exactly.
Yeah, Radiant Quest.
And that's pretty cool. I think overall, in the moment to moment, they give you a lot of stuff to do, and sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming for sure. But
most
I think
open world games are overwhelming.
I would agree.
I think it's hard, like, except for like when it's minimal. Like, sorry to bring it up again, Elden Ring.
No,
you know, like open world games, like they really know how to like overwhelm you.
Absolutely.
In a bad way. Like it's just like you just, you
you
don't know what to do.
And then you look at like your quest list and stuff like that. That was the one thing.
I don't even look at my quest log in Horizon. I just
can't
do
even
whatever I
imagine.
see on my map.
Yeah.
I really don't like follow, like besides the main
I
quest.
do. That does seem to be an open world trope now, which I actually appreciate, is how they just show the marker on your map for the quest, like to continue the quest, and then you can just click the marker, and then that turns it into your active quest.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Dying Light also does that. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff to do in the open world in the way. If you have these GRE anomalies, which you go around and fight these like crazy infected, and then you get inhibitors out of that. What else? Dark Hollows, like I mentioned, you go in and you find special gear and stuff in there and special crafting equipments. You usually want to do those at night. But by the end of the game, I was so powerful that I was going in with my Molotov, which was like leveled up almost as high as you can go. And they're just all piled in, like twitching and shit. And you just throw it right in there and just fuck them up. But
there is co-op in this game. Did you do any of that?
I haven't. It's funny. First one had co-op too. I never did. Just because I don't have any one to play with, really.
Right.
Which I would be very curious how different this game is playing with other people. I'm wondering how much of a experience change that would make. But overall, I think it works flawlessly as a single player game, standalone, for sure.
Do you think I know for the first Dying Light, we did get DLC and a lot of free updates. Do
Yes.
you think is Techland going to do that this time around? Do you think you need it? Like, what's your thoughts post game?
I would be surprised if they didn't. They just released a next gen patch for Dying Light 1.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
so
how's just recent?
Yeah. Oh, like within the last month. I think before.
Okay.
I think it might have been actually right before the Dying Light 2 came out, but I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know, man. Techland, they seem to be a very consumer friendly company in a lot of ways. You know, they've probably done some stupid things, obviously, that I can't think of off the top of my head. But their marketing for this was very weird with the 500-hour long. I just don't think they knew. And I think Colin mentioned this on one of his episodes I was listening to. He's like, I just don't think they know how to market this right now. Like, how do you bring someone into a zombie game? I'm like, I guess that's true. I don't know. But dude, overall, this is just a solid game. I think it's a lot of fun. And one other gameplay aspect I do want to mention is the grappling hook was a major change from this game. So in the last one, you would throw it and it would just kind of pull you to that thing. In this, it's more of a swinging rope, which I actually like, and it becomes very intuitive as you're going throughout the city. You're running, you have a big gap, you see something up, throw it, and then you just swing across, and then you keep going. So that was definitely a welcome addition. Again, a lot of the parkour stuff was amazing. It really was.
Do you think this is a Game of the Year runner up or like any sort of awards? Do you think it's going to kind of get lost in the shuffle?
Definitely. I mean, unfortunately, I do think it will get lost in the shuffle with the greater audience.
Yeah,
I think for the people
it did come
who
out at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely.
It's already been trounced by a few other similar games.
Well, and it did have a few minutes to breathe, and I saw some people talking about it. And then
people were talking about it.
Yeah, but then, it petered off definitely quick. So I don't know. I'm not expecting this to be on like a Game of the Year, but this will be on my Games of the Year list for sure. Absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm going to keep playing it right now. There's still more things to do in it, and
yeah,
it definitely invites you back. There's no New Game Plus as far as I can tell. Which there was
I never want to replay an open world game, especially like big ones nowadays.
Yeah, it depends.
It's like the last thing I want to do is like, you know what? I ended up replaying like the first Horizon, but like when I replayed it, like it was for a trophy. They added them like way later, and I just ran through the main story. Like I was just like, I don't really want to like redo this at all because it's such a commitment. And I was just kind of like skipping everything, and I felt kind of bad, but I'm just like.
Got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah, like open world games, like especially like soon after they don't do well for replayability because like you already spend so much time in the world.
No, they are definitely more. It's funny. There's only been a few open world games in the past couple years that I've sat down almost immediately after and played again.
And
one you can probably guess.
Skyrim, Red Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Skyrim, I can't. That was so long ago. I mean, I've obviously replayed that. I couldn't even tell you how many times already. But like, I'm trying to think of if I played that like right again after I played it the first time around. But that was fucking
10 years ago.
11 years ago, right? 11, right?
Yeah. Well, we're still in the 10th year.
Yeah, I guess.
Anniversary.
Yeah. Insane. But I will talk about the glitches a little bit. I had two that I ran into that I noticed very much. One was that on rooftops you find these night runner posts or like kind of sanctuaries with that they just have a UV light and stuff like that, and you got to turn it on, just activate the generator, and then it's activated. So for one or two things that I activated, I'd come back and the lights were off, and it was like it acted as if it was activated, but it wasn't on, and I couldn't sleep there, and the UV lights weren't on. So that was frustrating. And then two of the anomalies glitched for me, like the boss fights, and I had to redo them, and that was frustrating. But and I ran into some of that classic kind of almost Assassin's Creed thing where the parkour isn't doing exactly what you want it to do. You know what I mean? You jump off the wrong way or something.
Yeah. Classic.
But again, it's so tight for a first-person parkour game. You don't feel like you're getting lost in the sauce. You know what I mean? You're not getting confused.
I've said classic maybe like 4 times, and I think lost in the sauce has now been said 3 times.
I love it. Did we say lost in the sauce already?
I said it twice.
Oh, I totally missed it. Oh, my God.
Hashtag lost in the sauce.
Hashtag lost in the sauce. I did not hashtag get lost in the sauce. One last thing, gameplay wise, I thought was really cool. There were these rooftop sanctuaries where at nighttime you'd see like they'd set up. The idea was these runners would set up things that have like bees for honey, which would help you craft health stuff.
Interesting.
There would be like beehives, and then like basically a little kit for if you were stuck on the roof at night and you needed shit to keep yourself going. So I thought that was a little cool touch. But yeah, man, go play Dying Light. Especially this is going to be probably $10 off, $20 off within the next month or two. I genuinely think it's a lot of fun.
Playing so many games right now.
I know.
It's like it is honestly like, and like all of them are like Souls-like games.
Well, it's funny. I will say I'm so glad I didn't get Horizon. Not because it's a bad game. Not because it's like not because I hate. It's just because.
Well, my Horizon really got fucking drowned by Elden Ring.
I know. I kind of feel bad.
Drowned.
Did you see the developers like kind of shitting on it?
Yeah,
hilarious.
The Ubisoft developers.
Yeah. Again, I'm not going to say that's not every.
And
there were some.
Like,
there
I'm
were
like,
some
guys, you need
that
to
were
shut
like
your
this
mouth.
fine. No,
like,
again. Yeah, fuck
like
that.
like the open world games, and I think you even hear from this. Like we need like open world games just need to evolve. Like we're at a point where you know who's going to be the company to kind of do it? Bethesda. They have a chance to really like reinvent the wheel with
Starfield.
Not even Starfield, but Elder Scrolls 6. Like
true, you're right. More so that
like
for sure.
I would be surprised if Starfield really like
changes the game,
revolutionized, and I could be wrong. Like I'm excited for Starfield, but we still don't know enough that I can confidently be like, yeah, Starfield's going to reinvent the wheel.
Oh, no, that's fair.
I feel like
Absolutely.
Elder Scrolls 6 will definitely do that because
I can't even contemplate
every Elder
what that's
Scrolls
gonna be.
game does reinvent the wheel. And they have.
It's true.
Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim have both kind of like, like I said, reinvented the wheel.
Man.
They've changed the game. I think
also,
they'll do it again.
I do think they need to. A lot of open world games now are made for, your entry level. They are made to allow an entry level person in, and I want games to give us a bit more leash, let us off the leash a little bit even. And I do
enough
think
of the hand holding.
I don't need it, or innately give me the option to take that hand holding away and make it
Quickly, yeah.
But I think there is a difference in a game that's made to be played like that, where you do say an Elden Ring that was built from the ground up to be explored the way you're exploring it, and we're exploring it now. So there's something to that. I don't know. I don't know where free open world games are going to go, but god damn it, I can't wait to see. And I want Starfield. Right? Is that Starfield our next gen game coming out? Our next fully next gen?
What do you mean our next gen game?
I mean our next. I guess it's a current gen now. Like
I was listening to Sacred Symbols,
still
or maybe it was Defining
believe-
Duke, and they said a game that like this game is fully next gen, and I forget which one it is, but it's coming out soon. But I don't remember what it is.
I mean, Starfield's that's like the next. I mean, like the next one that anyone can name. God,
Is that 11/11?
It's 11/11/22. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, can't wait. But guys, I think that does it for us today for our review of Dying Light 2: Stay Human. Of course, can't forget the subtitle. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are found. Just search Delco Nerd Network. We are on all your favorite social media pages at Delco Nerds on basically everything. You can find our website, delconerdnetwork.com, on the internet where it is found. We have a Discord channel. We have... Geez, what else? It's funny. I feel like, when is the last time we did a podcast? I'm totally like blanking on my outro. It's going crazy. But guys, you can find all this information on our website. Like I said, we have an email, delconerds@gmail.com. You can email us all your comments, questions, or concerns. We'd be happy to get back to you. And if you can drop us a review while on any of your favorite podcast apps, that very much helps too. So, guys, thank you so much for Gooch. I've been Trio. Stay nerdy, and we will see you next time.